My name is Joanna Santoli, and I am the first VP for the Lynbrook Council of PTAs. On behalf of the PTA, I would like to welcome you to tonight's Meet the Candidate. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I would like to thank Dr. Burak and any administration that's here tonight, as well as current members of our Board of Education. I would also like to thank our three candidates, William Belmont, Andrew Lunar, and Catherine Bean, for being here tonight, as well as all of you in the audience and at home. Tonight's event is being moderated by the League of Women Voters, and we have Nancy Rosenthal here for that reason. So I would like to introduce her and thank her for being here with us. I will continue to collect questions as needed, and Nancy will tell you a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having this forum tonight. It's an important part of the dialogue that goes on before a candidate, we go to the polls to vote. The procedures for tonight's meeting have all been signed by all three candidates, so they will abide by them. But just so everyone knows, the moderator is a member of the league who does not live in this district, so I have no feelings about any of these candidates, whether they win or they lose. And just as a reminder, the league is nonpartisan, so we do not support any candidates. The candidates have drawn lots, and so they're in the order that they will speak, from opening statements and then the beginning of the questions, which will rotate, and then the closing. They have also, all three of them, agreed to go by their first names. So that is the way I will be addressing them. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for the opening, 1.5 minutes for the answers, and 3 minutes for the closing. I think all of you know, because I have many questions here, so I think the question part, everybody understands that process. And I will be the arbitrator of the questions in terms of their fairness, in appropriateness, repetitiveness, or abusiveness. So if your question isn't answered or asked, it just means I've maybe combined it. There have been a lot of the same questions, and I've just made a decision about how that question can be best asked for your education on the candidates. I will attempt to maintain the rotation. Sometimes it gets a little bit difficult, as you'll see. Ivy Riley is going to be our timekeeper, and do you want to just hold up your time sign? So at 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. And I do know what a run-on sentence is. I also know when to kind of stop it. And so just count on me following a procedure that you'll understand as it comes up. The purpose of the meeting is to determine these candidates' views. There are no substitutes allowed. In accordance with league policy, the taping has been agreed upon by the candidates. It's being live streamed and will be posted on I believe, the local school board or school website. None of the videotape can be taken out of it and used in any campaign. It has to be viewed in its entirety. So the order is that Billy goes first, and so you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by thanking the PTA Council and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and for all of you coming out and showing an interest in our community. My name is Bill Belmont, William Belmont, or Billy, as the nice lady had indicated. I am running for re-election for the school board. I was born and raised in Lynbrook. Obviously think very highly of this community. I've always felt that if you live in a community, you have an obligation to make it better. You should always be doing your best wherever you are to make that environment that you're in a better place. And I've always felt that way. Even when I grew up in Limbrook, as a student here, I was active when I was a student in the high school. I was a member of many clubs. I was a member of the debate team, the Friends team, the SAD program. I was also captain of the football team and president of the high school. As president of the high school, I had a decent amount of experience in dealing with the superintendent's office as well as business owners, the mayor's office. I got a real sense at an early age of how being involved in the community can make a difference in the school district. After Limbrook, which obviously had a great experience, I went on to college and to law school. I worked as a trial attorney, I worked as a police officer, and I now have my own investigation firm. Through that process, I was lucky enough to meet my amazing wife, and although a Jersey girl, I was able to convince her that Long Island would be a great place to raise our children, and I think we have both found that to be true. My older son is a sophomore in college, my daughter graduates this year. And I'm very proud of the 15 years of time I've had on the school board. When I moved back to Limbrook, Dr. Barbarino, who's someone I was very close with, had requested that I get involved. At that time, I joined the Health and Safety Committee. And at the same time, I began to coach youth teams, which was a great experience because it enabled me to speak to parents from all over from the district, from Waverly Park to West End to Marion Street. Got a real sense of what different people wanted, what the different stakeholders thought was important in our community. Then after that, Dr. Barbarino had asked me to run for the school board, which I did, and 15 years later, here I am. I'm very proud of the accomplishments of this board and what we've done, especially over the last 2 years. The difference was when I ran 3 years ago, things were much more settled. There was more consistency that was being done. I think right now we're in a situation where there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, are we in a pandemic? Are we out of a pandemic? Is it a lull in the pandemic? We have a lot of changes to our programs, the heads of our programs. We have some new principals. The biggest issue we have is that we need to find a new superintendent, which will not be an easy task. Now, starting next year, this board's going to have to look for a replacement for Dr. Burak. Will not be easy. Will not be easy to fill those shoes when you consider the work that she has done working with this board and accomplishing the things we have. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, and if you give me the opportunity, I'll continue to do the work for the board. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Lunar, and I'm running to be on the Limbrook School Board. Just a little bit of background about myself. My wife and I have lived in the community for over 13 years. We have 2 children, and they're both current students at the Limbrook Public Schools. My older son, Gabe, is a freshman in the high school. My younger son, Cameron's 5th grade at Waverly Park. Next year, he'll be attending the South Middle School. In my career, much like Mr. Belmont, I'm an attorney. I practice business law, and in that career, I am often called upon to analyze complex problems and come up with creative solutions. And that's a skill set that I really hope I could bring to our board to help take our district to the next level from where we currently are. Over the past 10 years, I've dedicated a ton of time to the kids in this community. I coached 4 separate CYO basketball teams for St. Raymond's. I've been a coach in the Limbrook East Rockaway Soccer Club. I've coached at the Limbrook Little League. My wife and I are also very active in the Waverly Park PTA. We've co-run the book fair, which is, by the way, is coming up in a couple weeks. We've run the field day for a couple of years, and many Fridays, if you come up to Waverly Park, you'll see us there handing out pizza for the PTA-sponsored pizza lunch program. As everyone knows, 2 years ago, our kids faced probably the worst thing they've ever faced in COVID. They were sent home from school, the schools closed, they were away from their parents, from their children, their friends, their teachers, all their activities and all the things that made their lives special. And when the schools reopened in September of 2020, the first year back from COVID, the schools reopened on a hybrid model. We didn't have sports, we didn't have bands, we didn't have clubs, we didn't have activities. And anybody who's a parent of a kid in the district or any kid anywhere in the country knows just how much the children were suffering. So I became an advocate, and I'm proud to say I was probably the most vocal advocate in the entire district for our children during that time. And I advocated for the schools to reopen more fully and to safely reopen in a way that brought back sports and clubs and activities and all the things that our kids needed. And I got on the reopening committee, and I'm proud to say I was largely involved and largely responsible for getting the district open what I believe was faster and more fully for our children. Now, my campaign is about far more than just COVID. I think we have a great district. I think that we have great teachers, great families. It's a great community. But there are so many things we could be doing better in this community and in this school for our children. We need new laptops. The kids should not be using 4-year-old tablets that they got in 6th grade when they're entering high school. We need more electives. We have far fewer elective classes than competing districts in the area. We need more after-school clubs. We should not only have 23 after-school clubs when other districts have 45 and 50. Those are just a couple topics I want to touch on, but generally speaking, I want to be involved in bringing our district from where it is now to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kathy Bean, and I'm pleased to present myself as a candidate for the Lynbrook School Board. I was born and raised in Lynbrook. My husband and I are proud parents of 4 children and also graduates of the Lynbrook High School. When we were looking to purchase our first home, we couldn't think of a better place than the Lynbrook School District to start our family. I am proud to say that all 4 of my children, graduates of Lynbrook High School, are very successful in their careers and very independent. Over the course of 20 years through the school district, I was involved in many activities. I was involved in the PTA, the fundraising, class mom, football pasta night mom. However, one of my proudest achievements was being selected to assist with the formation of the kindergarten center, of which I served for over a year. After 9/11, I was motivated to join the Lynbrook Fire Department and became an EMT. Within 2 years, I became an officer and now an ex-captain and trustee of the building. As trustee, I have the responsibility to prepare the yearly budget. With this experience, I have developed an expertise in budgeting and finance for large organizations. After 30 years, I recently retired from my career working for an insurance company as an accounting specialist. My considerable knowledge and experience in both finance and insurance, along with the experience with the district, both as a prospective student and a parent, I propose the qualities needed to serve as an educated, effective member of the school board. I also possess strong leadership skills and, more importantly, the ability to be a team player. I will always remain respectful of the opinion of others, especially when they differ from mine. Last year, the Lynbrook Fire Department came to the school board requesting a tax break, which is typical in the surrounding villages. We prepared a PowerPoint presentation which was positively received by the board. This experience intrigued me in the board's decision-making process, and I knew it was a function I can positively offer as a board member. Although my youngest child graduated almost 10 years ago, I have always remained in support of the district by attending many sporting events, scholarship games, art shows, and the school musicals, which are above Broadway productions. If elected on May 17th, I promise to commit the time and the energy necessary to be effective and informed leader. I will work hard each day to implement policies that promote the achievements of all students, regardless of their needs and ability. I will honor and respect the oath I will take and will give it my all. Continue to make Lynbrook schools the best. Thank you.
Thank you. And the first question, Billy, starts with you. Is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the board? Are there any experiences or skills that have prepared you to serve as a board member?
Any one particular, I don't think there's one particular issue. Having been on the board for 15 years, I guess I would rely heavily upon the experience of having done that for 15 years and where we are on the board. I guess my biggest issue, which I've been pretty vocal about, is my concern with having too much government control in what we do as a district. It just makes no sense to me that we have so many unfunded mandates. Having Albany tell us how to evaluate our teachers, the manner in which we have to record our money, any type of issues that come up are issues that we should have some local control about. And there's nothing wrong with them setting up boundaries for us, but me, the main issue is making sure that Lynbrook knows what's best for Lynbrook. What's great for Albany, what's great for Oceanside, what's great for Buffalo may not be what's great for Lynbrook. So for me, that would be the number one issue. And as far as the skill set, I think the most important thing on the board is you have to be able to collaborate. You have to work together with other people. That's an important part of that job. And you have to listen. People have different perspectives, different opinions. It's important to make sure everyone is heard, and not everyone will agree with what you decide, but in the end, you have to make a decision that's in the best interest of the children and of the district. Thank you.
Andy?
In a theme I think you may hear from all of us tonight, I largely agree with Billy's points regarding governmental control and state control of the district. I'll touch upon a different point. I think the greatest issue facing our district today is the need to really take the district to the next level. Lynbrook is a great school, but it could be so much greater. I've heard so many people say in response to a number of issues, this is how we've always done it at Lynbrook, and that's great. It works well. It's not working as well as it needs to. We need to always be trying to improve the district, and I'm not seeing that in recent years. We need to be improving technology. I touched upon laptops. We need to have more after-school clubs. We need to have more electives in the high school. We need to do more to help our kids who are going into the college application process, which is more competitive than ever. We need to have better guidance from early on, not in your third year and your fourth year. We need people to develop plans early on. For kids that are not going to college, we need to help them choose a vocation that's right for them and specialize early on so that they're prepared when they get out of high school. So those are just 2 or 3 areas I think we need to improve upon, and those are key issues for me. In terms of my skill set, I'm an attorney. I actually advise boards of directors as part of my practice, so I really see what it takes for a board to be successful. And one of the most important things is people on a board who approach situations from different perspectives and can work together even if you're on different sides of the issue, and that's something I think I could bring to the table.
Thank you. Kathy?
Great points, exactly what I was going to make. Okay, so.
So nothing further?
Yeah, ditto. I would like to see a lot of improvements in Lynbrook schools, but one of the things that really is close to my heart is vocational programs. We have a college day, but we don't have a vocational day. A vocational day will help children who can't go to college or maybe can't afford it or they don't have the skills to go to college. Maybe a vocational day will help them to show maybe they want to be a plumber or a carpenter or an electrician. We need something to educate our children in that way and steer them in the right direction. As far as improvement, the school is amazing. I went here. I have to say I always love Lynbrook. It's very close to my heart. But there's always room for improvement with electronics, with the tools that children need to advance in all their goals, whether it be college, sports, arts, music, educational, engineering. We'd like to see that improvement. Always, always for the kids and the teachers.
Hi, everyone at home. I'm aware there is a break in the live stream and you're missing maybe 4 minutes. You're going to continue to have that break until after this is all done and we upload the entire video, so do not fret. You will see all of the opening statements and you'll have the whole thing in its entirety if you've missed some of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanna. So, Andy, the next question is yours. The teachers' union contract is up for negotiation next year. With what we have seen as the union's response to the district asking for concessions, what changes do you want to see implemented in the next contract?
Okay. So I think during COVID, one of the things that we've seen is we had a lot of great teachers in this district who stepped up. My third grader was sent home in the first year of COVID, and his teacher came to the house. She didn't come in, she stayed outside, she waved by a window, she called the house. That happened throughout this district because we have so many great teachers that live in the district, and they work in the district, and they have kids in the district. So I think the next contract that we come up with needs to support the teachers and needs to recognize just how great so many of them were during the last 2 years of what we went through. Now, in terms of concessions, I will say, I was troubled to find out that the teachers union was standing up and refusing to turn on cameras for kids who were at home sick and quarantined. To me, that was absurd. I'm not gonna pull punches, that was absurd. If the kid is home and cannot be in school because they've tested positive, to simply turn on a camera, they were requesting additional concessions for that. I don't agree with that. So I think the new contract needs to make clear that if we ever have to go remote, and I hope we never do, live streaming's a must. If we ever have to go remote, there's no reason that kids can't pilot into the class on Zoom or on any of the WebEx technology that we have. But that's the main concession that I'd want to see. But generally speaking, I think the teachers stood up and did the right thing, so we should be continuing to support them.
Kathy?
Hi. I'm always a big supporter of our teachers here in Lynbrook. During COVID, although I personally had no children in the school district, there was a neighbor of mine who didn't have food on their table. And one teacher went out of her way to deliver food every day. I can never thank them enough for that. Wasn't aware of them not live streaming, but from the teachers that I knew, they all went above and beyond to help the kids. I would always vote yes to any kind of union contract as a supporter of the unions and the teachers union. Good luck.
Billy?
Thank you. So I'm not going to address the idea of a concession. I don't think that's an appropriate word. I think there's a negotiation that goes on. Having done this for 15 years, it's not really a question of concessions. It's a question of getting to a point of commonality and mutual understanding of what's going on. Our teachers do an amazing job. Obviously, they always have. I wouldn't have come back here and raised my children here. I wouldn't be proud of the results of my children. There's different stakeholders we have in our district. You have those students that are going off to four-year schools. They want to go to the best schools in the country. We have other ones that are going off to schools, and they want to go to the least expensive but the best school they could. We have other kids that want to go to vocational schools and military. We have other children in our district who, unfortunately, are never going to live on their own. And we have to prepare them for what life is going to be like after high school. So it's a very complicated process as far as what we're going to do with that. Technology has changed. A lot of those issues with technology are we have to make sure the teachers have the training and the technology available to them so that they can start to utilize the technology as it is. I guess it's impossible to not envision technology becoming a greater part of what we're doing in the classroom. You're seeing cameras everywhere now. You're seeing the increased use of that technology. It's just important to make sure that we listen to what the teachers need and to make sure that should we go into any similar situation like we had 2 years ago, we figure out a way to make sure we're properly educating all those children, even some that may be home. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, this question's yours. To start with, what are your feelings about the current level of discipline as used throughout the district? Do you feel the district policies are appropriate, enforceable, and being enforced properly and appropriately? Some of the areas mentioned needing discipline include drinking, vaping, and drug use. And what do you think the thoughts are about activities for students after school or weekends to address these and other discipline areas?
It's really a combined question, but
Right.
It's two questions.
First of all, drinking, vaping, no. Any teacher has a right to discipline or principal. I think it still holds a zero tolerance here, which carries over if any child is in any activity, they will be disciplined over the weekend also. I think it should be any child, period, not if you're in activity. If you are vaping in front of the school or vaping anywhere on the property, you have to be 21 to vape. You have to be 21 to drink. You have to be 21 to smoke. So they shouldn't be allowed anywhere within it, the school or anywhere else. As far as the policies, I read over a few policies over the last couple of weeks, and I agree with most of them. During COVID, the policies that they put into place with COVID, that was something new to our district, new to the world. So I think they did the best to their ability, but yeah, I believe in zero tolerance. So any child that is caught drinking over the weekend or any other time should be disciplined by the schools and the parents.
Billy?
Nancy, can you repeat that question with the mic before Billy?
Sure.
Thank you.
What are your feelings? No, but these questions are good. What are your feelings about the current level of discipline as used throughout the district? Do you feel the district policies are appropriate, enforceable, and being enforced properly and appropriately? The areas mentioned included drinking, vaping, and drug use. And what are your thoughts on activities for students after school and weekends to address these and other discipline issues?
thank you. So in reverse order, it'd be great to see if we can increase those activities. We've constantly worked over the years with the village to see if we can create more outlets for those children. We have Friday night and Saturday night activities for them to attend. Obviously, the more things you can do to keep them focused on socializing in an appropriate manner and making smart, healthy decisions would be great. As far as the level of discipline, this has been an ongoing issue going back to when I was in high school. You know, do we want the kids wandering the streets? The biggest problem with the issues that you have, it's not a school issue, it's a parent issue, okay? If you're the house that's serving a kegger on Friday night, that's not a district issue, that's your issue. We don't need Joe Reynes coming in on Monday morning and playing police officer. And per the policies, we don't have a right to do that. You can't have somebody call the high school and say, hey, little Johnny was smoking at Susie's house, and think that's something the school district can handle. When we have an issue with that, that's something as a community we should be addressing. Years ago, the police chief out of the captain out of the 4th Precinct went over to East Rockaway and had a whole community meeting just to discuss the kids walking up and down the streets. And every time something happens, they're calling up the school to do that. Those are community issues. The school does a great job at all different levels. Obviously, elementary school discipline is different than high school discipline. Got to keep in mind also, it's not a law enforcement or criminal justice system. We're an educational institution. The same approach you take to children that are committing crimes and going to jail is not what you need to do when they happen in schools. So we have discipline. I like the way in which we gauge the structure of how we increase that discipline as it is. And thank you, Ms. Riley.
Andy?
So picking up on what Billy said, I think it is important to realize that the school's hands are somewhat tied as respects activity that occurs off school grounds. Using Billy's example, if little Johnny is drinking or smoking at Susie's house on the weekend, the school actually doesn't have the authority to do anything about that. It's really not a school issue. This is more of a community parental issue. My kids went to Waverly Park. I live close to the school. We see it on the weekends that there are beer bottles along the street on Emmett Avenue. I know the same thing goes on Sherman Street up in the north side, that the kids are walking in large groups and they're doing a lot. What can the school do? We could certainly educate the kids. I think the district already does a great job of that. We could certainly engage with the parents more. I think we could do a better job of that. We could get the parents in, have more meetings with the parents. If we hear about an issue, yes, we cannot discipline little Johnny, to use that example, but we could certainly call in little Johnny's parents and maybe the whole group of kids that were involved in that incident and educate them that we as a school are hearing these things are going on the weekends, and let's put a stop to it. I think one way to do it is the middle school does a really good job of this. They used to have teen night. It was a couple Fridays a year. The kids would come. It was structured. They were playing sports, and that got the kids off the street. I don't think we do that as much anymore since COVID. We have it. We don't have it as often as we should. We should really have it every weekend for the whole school year, and we should try to find a high school analog that's similar to that, because some of the high school kids, they're looking for that structure too. Yes, high school kids will always get in trouble. They want to explore their options in the world, but I do think we should offer them alternatives at least, so that if they want to, they can have safe fun.
Thank you. Billy, the 4th question is yours. What are your thoughts on the district exploring cost sharing with neighboring districts for late transportation and for non-public school students?
So that is done. So community sharing of expenses is something that is done. There's a lot of different nuances to it, because it's not just the sharing of the bus. You have to do the logistics on how many students each school has, what school they're going to. Every year at our budget session that comes up, and every year it's discussed. So the idea of sharing expenses with surrounding districts is great for as many things as we can do that with, not just with busing. If there's a practical and efficient way to share our expenses with another district, we should be doing that. But the busing issue is a constant issue, and it's constantly looked at. Thank you.
Okay. So for those in the audience who don't know what this question is about, there's a large group of kids in our district who have left to go to private school, Chaminade, Kellenberg, and several others. And those kids have been asking the district for several years. The district has to provide busing to and from school, but those kids have been asking for an additional bus on the way home for the kids who stay after for sports. And I think they're frustrated because the district hasn't been very receptive. Now, I'm not on the board. I certainly don't understand or know at this point the finances and the logistics, but I think that group feels that they've been ignored and disrespected because the board won't engage with them. And I think at a minimum, the board owes it to those people to at least engage and explore and have a feasibility study to really get some hard numbers. Now, to me, the issue of private school busing raises a much broader question, which is why in this past year did Lynbrook lose a record number of kids to the private schools? For the upcoming year, from everything I'm hearing, hearing it's going to be an even larger number. So rather than address how we're going to get kids to and from private schools, we need to see what we could do to keep some of those kids at home in Lynbrook so that they're not exploring private schools as their only option. Thank you.
Kathy?
I am definitely for the district sharing costs with for other expenses, and I know transportation is a big one. And just like Andy said, that I have heard the same complaint. A few people called me. I know that it is in the budget to provide transportation back and forth to school. But as far as after-school sports, even when my kids were attending and their friends, that was provided by the parents. But that is definitely something that the board should look into to make sure that they do have the transportation needed, especially in this world. We don't want our kids having to Uber or call someone and not being sure of their safety, and safety is a big issue with children. So I 100% think that we should look into making sure, if elected, that there is transportation for these children for after-school sports.
Thank you. Andy, this question's for you. The community, the district, the community keeps getting more diverse, meaning that there are marginalized communities, including those who are Black and brown, neurodiverse, differently abled, speak English as a second language, and who are part of the LGBTQ community. With that diversity, people still seem to be intolerant, to have intolerance. How would your life experiences help to repair this reputation and make the town and the district more welcoming to all children and families?
So I think what you've stated about the Lynbrook community is not unique to Lynbrook. It's true of virtually every community in the country. Diversity is increasing across the country, whether it's ethnic, racial, religious, sexual orientation. And quite frankly, I think Lynbrook has embraced that. I see my kids' curriculum. I see what they're taught every day. There is a huge push in this district for tolerance, for people coming together, for people getting along. There is, from what I've seen, a zero tolerance policy for any type of inappropriate racial comments or discrimination at all. I think it's already here. We're doing a great job. Could we do a better job in this community? Yes. I mean, I hear the way some of the kids in the high school talk. We do need to do more to bring the kids together and to teach them that it's not okay to say certain things, and we need to look at everybody as equal, to not look at people based upon the color of their skin, based upon their sexual orientation. But I really do think that the district and the board has laid a very good groundwork, does an excellent job of that, and we can build upon that.
Kathy?
I am 100% totally against bullying. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to anybody being any sort of prejudice, it's just bullying another person. Whether they're a different sex, a different color, whatever it is. I think the board does a great job in putting policies together for this, and maybe this falls into the other question about what we would do with it, what would kind of discipline for a child to be against another child. But that is something that we have to look into as far as policies to make sure that it doesn't happen. One child being bullied, one child being picked on is 100% wrong.
Billy,
Could you read the question again?
you would ask me that. Truly? It's a very complicated.
Yeah.
This district keeps getting more diverse. And that diversity includes marginalized communities, people who are black and brown, neurodiverse, differently abled, speak English as a second language, and who are part of the LGBTQ community. With that diversity, people still seem to be intolerant. How would your life experiences help to repair this reputation and make the town and the district welcoming to all children and families?
Thank you. I asked you to read the question again because the question itself is a very biased question. It makes an assumption that we are an intolerant community, so I'll begin my response by saying I don't believe we are. I believe we're a very, very accepting community, and we teach our kids from an early age the importance of empathy. And if you go to the kindergarten center and you go to their cultural celebration day, you think we're the UN. In my neighborhood alone, I could probably identify for you 12 countries in 1 or 2 blocks where I live, where people live in my community, which is your community, and get along. So I don't appreciate the question and the assumption in the question. My own personal experience is I have a professional and personal life that works with people in both the LGBTQ community, very diverse clients and people I'm friends with and I associate with. But more importantly, where that question may have been trying to go is what we do teach is the whole child in Lynbrook. We're very big on that. We don't just teach you about academics, we teach you about character. And empathy is the word to keep in mind. And we'll probably come up again with future questions. Our job is to make sure kids can walk in the shoes of other kids and appreciate who they are and what their life experience is about. I think we do a great job of that. And so while some may feel that way, I think that's a minor issue. And just to clarify with the few seconds I have left, just because I am on the board and I don't want the board to take a hit, we did spend time this year at the board meeting addressing the issue of busing. There was extensive work done on the numbers, and we did engage with some of those groups that were asking about busing. Thank you.
Kathy, this question's for you. This issue is one that we have many questions on. Diversity, equity, inclusion is a huge agenda item for the district currently, but many are saying that nothing is coming out of the committees. What do you see as the biggest issue in our community right now related to, and in our, as the biggest issues in our community and in our schools right now related to DEI and what diversity, equity, inclusion, and what would you do in response?
I haven't seen it. I really honestly couldn't answer that question honestly because I'm not aware of it. So I'm going to say if I was on the school board, I will do my best to come up with a good answer. I don't have one.
Thank you. Billy.
Another question that begins, many are saying. So I don't believe many are saying that. I think DEI exists everywhere now. It's an important term, and the idea as I see it is to make sure that we can appreciate, again, empathy of the students. We are becoming more and more diverse. The school district has made a concerted effort to become more diverse in their teachers, making sure they have a better appreciation for their student body. It's been a difficult process to do. We have a policy that addresses this issue. What concerns me is a great story. I'm going to say it quickly because I love it, and I didn't come up with it. If you take a bunch of red ants and a bunch of black ants and you put them in a jar, they will cohabitate and live together peacefully and happy without a problem. But if you shake that jar, those ants will start going after each other. And to me, there's a lot of people in our society that are trying to shake that jar, to try to make issues where issues don't exist. There will always be a segment of every population that's concerned. But in Lynbrook, since I was here, since my brothers were here, my uncles were here, is very unique. People come back here for a reason. They graduate from here, they raise their children here, and there's a reason we have such a great increase in the diversity of people that are moving here. So yes, it's an issue we've addressed. We have policies on it. Our teachers are aware of it. They speak to their students about it, and I think we're doing a very good job at it, and we'll continue to address it going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and I got to be honest, I couldn't agree with what Billy said anymore. I think this district is unique in that we've really gone a long way, and we've done an amazing job on implementing DEI in our schools. We have diversity in our schools, and I will tell you, I see it from both of my children's group of friends, their activities. I don't see this being an issue in our community at all. I think we do a great job of it. I think the biggest issue we have facing our community with respect to diversity is the type of questions that were just submitted, starting with many people are saying, or we have a problem in the community. We don't have a problem in this community in that regard, okay? I think, could it be better? It could always be better. That's true of any single issue you raise. But this community is unique in its ability to integrate kids of all backgrounds, and they're doing a great job of it. The school in particular has a zero tolerance policy for any type of bullying, any type of harassment based upon diversity issues, gender, race, sexual orientation. And it's implemented even-handedly. Okay, I see it firsthand from what my kids tell me goes on at school. So I think the biggest problem that we have is people trying to rip us apart in this community and not keep us together as we already are. Thank you.
And I have another question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. How will you ensure that the search for the new superintendent includes looking for candidates who prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And along with that question, I would also ask another question, which includes, can you ensure that the district hires teachers, staff, and administrators to reflect the changes in diversity of the student population?
Who's got that
Who's
one?
got that one?
Billy, you get
I
to
think
go
we're
with
both
that
chomping
one.
at the same bit.
The, oh, I'd love to have you read that one back, because that's like 15 questions in one. So.
Each one more loaded than the next.
That question again assumes priority, so I'll say this, that the search for the next superintendent will be someone who's able to continue doing what we're doing in a variety of areas, diversity being one of them. I can't again stress to you how much time and energy Dr. Berman has spent trying to look for and to bring diversity into the schools. It is not ignored, it is a constant issue and is always being addressed. If I'm continued to be on the board, there's a variety of priorities that we'll be looking for in a superintendent. So I'll be looking for someone who will do what's in the best interest of the students and the community as a whole. Thank you.
Billy.
That w-
Excuse me, Andy.
So, as everyone knows, Dr. Burak's contract is up and she'll be leaving the school soon. And the question is about how we're going to be hiring the next superintendent and how diversity should factor into that. When we're hiring the next superintendent of schools, the #1 quality should be competence. We need to hire the best candidate for the job who will take Lynbrook from where it currently is, which is a pretty darn good spot, to an even better spot. We should be looking at their ability, their competence, their creativity, what their goals are for this district. Somebody who gets the unique culture of our district, because we do have a great culture in this community. And we need someone who understands that and is willing to build upon that culture. Is DEI a factor to consider? Of course. Just like many other factors, we need somebody who fits the role of best in breed, best at the job. We should not be hiring based upon diversity characters alone. It's one of many factors to consider. And as to hiring teachers that reflect the demographic, the most important quality in a teacher is somebody who cares about our students. The second most important quality in a teacher is somebody who can teach our students. I don't care if that person is black, white, brown, or polka dot. We need the best for our students. We should not be hiring based upon those criteria. We should hire best in breed.
Kathy?
First of all, I'd like to apologize for the last question. I totally drew a blank and I'm not really sure why. But diversity is something that every superintendent in this school should have. And Mrs. Burek, I'm sorry, Dr. Burek absolutely had that. And I'm sure whether she leaves or stays, we will find someone, if she does leave, to have the same qualities that she has. Our teachers are #1, our children are #1, the programs that we put together for the children's, the policies, excuse me, are #1. So we need a teacher, a superintendent that will show these qualities of diversity in our children, whether they're black, white, or polka dot. As Andy just said, all children are equal, and that's what we will look for.
Great. Billy, you don't get to drop the mic yet.
Thank you. Andy, this question is yours. These last 2 years, there have been people on both sides of the debates regarding masks, vaccines, and mandates, which have divided our schools and community without telling us, I think they mean with telling us, our hands are tied. How will you ensure that Lynbrook parents on either side are able to make decisions that they believe are best for their children?
So I think the answer is embedded in the question. When we're making decisions relating to the health of our children, those are decisions to be made by parents. Those are decisions to be made by medical professionals. As a school board member, if I'm elected, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you what vaccine, not vaccine you should give your child, whether you should mask your child. That's a personal family decision that the family and their medical professionals can make. Now, as to how I will ensure that parental voices are respected in that process, I think to some extent the district's hands were tied. There's only so much you can do when the governor says, if you don't follow certain rules, we're going to shut down your school, defund you, and remove your board. But that said, I personally believe that the district needs to push back. There were some districts on Long Island that really did push back a little bit harder than our district did on some of the overreaching government mandates. Levittown was an example, but there were others. I'm not criticizing our school board. I think they really acted well in those regards. I do think, though, that we're entering the next phase of the pandemic where we're not going to have government control. It's going to be a school board control. And if that's the case, I think we need to respect the role of the parents and the views of the parents when it comes to their children's health, as opposed to what bureaucrats and elected officials would rather see.
Kathy?
Mask, vaccines, I think it's all a parent's decision more than a school board or your doctor or that stands on TV and tells you that they would vaccinate their child. Well, each parent has that choice to whether they would rather put a mask on or vaccine. But as far as when the governor turns around and they're going to take away funding if you don't wear a mask, that is the board being tied, because they took away that funding, then we would lose some of the best programs that we have for our kids. But as far as mask or vaccine, I think it's a parent's right to choose. And if I was elected, I would listen to what the parent had to say.
Billy?
Thank you. So I like that the question again used the biased term that divided our community. So if our community was so divided and we got through this so well, then I think as a district and a school board, we did a great job. I mean, I don't recall any of our board meetings making it to YouTube, which is a winner as far as I'm concerned. As far as the difficulty in making it, I mean, I've spoken on this for the last 2 years extensively, so my opinion is well known and my unhappiness with the government telling us what to do. And no district did any better than us. Every district wore a mask. Massapequa, who wanted to hire little lawsuits and made a big stink, they wore masks every day. They never did anything different. If the governor tells us we have to do something, that is where the battle must be had. I know people don't want to bring politics in, but on a state level, if they're making that decision, that's where the change has to come. That is who has to give us the discretion. Remember the danger, though, when you say parents should make that decision. Should parents decide what books we read? Should parents decide what classes we should take? So the question is, masks, vaccinations, I want as much control as we have. I'm very comfortable that as a board, we will get the right access to the right medical professionals to make that decision. We just have to be careful deciding where that's going to go. I don't see the governor, at least in the current government that's there, changing that decision, but it's concerning. I'm concerned about where the fall will be. If we see an uptick again, if they consistently do what they've done in the past, are they going to start dictating to us what to do when we as a district should be able to, on our own, make those type of decisions? Again, what's great for Lynbrook may not be great for everywhere else. Thank you.
Kathy, this is your question. We saw a lot of heated discussions this year at Board of Ed meetings. How would you improve communication between the school board, the district, and the families?
I watched a few of the televised, and I think the heat came from the parents and some of the board. But I think that maybe if we eliminate time for someone to speak, like we're doing tonight, when it comes up to the school board, maybe that would help a little bit. I don't think anybody in a position sitting on the board should get angry, but they are human also. I know that they shouldn't lose their temper or be upset with parents, but I think maybe if you timed how long they could speak into a mic, not for the meeting itself, that maybe that might help a little bit so things aren't repetitive and going up there and talking about the same issues over and over again.
Thank you. Billy?
I didn't find them heated. I think people were passionate about their positions, but again, we didn't make it to YouTube, which is a plus. I think people were passionate on their issues. They expressed themselves what they wanted to do, but people got to speak. It's very important as a board to allow people at that microphone to express themselves and try to find commonality and let them speak and let them feel like they've been heard to make those types of decisions. As far as the communication, I've been on the board for 15 years. I was active in the community before that. The board does so much work to get communication out to the parents. We have a website. We have PTA, which is an amazing organization that is liaison to what you want to hear about. The problem is some people never get involved until they have that one particular issue. And then they show up at a board meeting and all of a sudden they don't want to know why they don't know something. The agenda's out there every month. You know, people, it can't just be, we can't go to people's homes as a board and say, hey, this is what's happening. There are so many tools we have available to you. There's websites. Dr. Burek puts out an email every single week and updates during the week about what's going on. So it's got to be a back and forth between the community and the district as far as information. So it's been an ongoing issue, I think, between the social media we have. You know, there's Twitter pages, there's Facebook pages, there's a website. You can't have any more information than we're doing. And again, the PTA is an amazing vehicle by which information flows back and forth. Thank you.
Andy?
So I don't disagree that the district puts out a lot of information to parents, but I think the reason that we had heated board meetings and the reason people were getting worked up is parents over the past couple of years felt that their voices were being ignored. Their kids' health, both their mental and physical health, were being impacted. Their kids' social, emotional, and educational development were being impacted. And I think, and I was one of them, I was a parent who felt that the district was doing what it needed to do, but wasn't really listening to the parents. I spoke at a lot of the meetings. You ask a question to the board, you don't always get an answer. Now, I'm not being critical. Like I said, I advise boards of directors. If I was advising the school board, I would say, just listen to the question and don't respond. But as someone on the other side who's actually asking the question, and I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of parents about this, people feel that the board isn't fully listening, doesn't respond to their specific needs. So I think, how do we improve it? How do we take down the temperature? I think, look, you're seeing a lot of dialogue here. People on this stage certainly all agree with each other on a lot. We get along incredibly well. We need to take that not just amongst candidates and board members. We need the board to engage a little bit more with the parents. A parent writes a letter. A parent writes an email. I know it takes time, but respond. Maybe you don't send one response to every single question. Group them together, but people like to feel that they're being heard and responded to, and that's something I think we could improve upon to help take down the temperature, because I don't think the disagreements are quite as broad as people think they are.
Thank you. This question's for you, Billy. What do you see as the role of the school board versus school administrators in seeking and selecting curriculum materials? And in conjunction with that, how would you react to a parent bringing concern about a specific curriculum topic being taught or read about in school?
Oh my goodness, and you don't want me to ask you to repeat that, do you? We had a load of questions for a minute and a half. Let me begin just by reverting back to the last part, just again, being the board president, sitting on the board, I have to clarify things. Every email that comes to the board is responded to. That's David Yeager's responsibility, and every time the board meets, we make sure those emails go out. I'm not putting him under the bus. He's the one that drafts that.
David's not listening right
But the board meets only once a month, so anytime...
Excuse me, could we maybe stick to the question, please?
Yeah, I am sticking to the question, but I have to respond.
I think you're responding to the last question.
If I'm not going to have a rebuttal, I have to make sure the information is accurate.
There is no rebuttal, and that was in the procedure, so
Okay.
please go
So
with the...
okay, fine. So what's this question?
What do you see as the role of the school board versus school administrators in seeking and selecting?
Okay, I got it. Thank you. So the difference is we as board members are not education experts, even with educators on the board. That is not our job. You do three things as a board member. You hire a superintendent, your most important job. You set policy and you set the budget. That's it. It is not our job to start weighing in on our own personal agendas when it comes to curriculum. If there's issues regarding the curriculum, that the educators, which are the experts, Dr. Burek, the superintendent, the principals, and the teachers, they're the ones that get involved in that. So when it's something that's they believe we should weigh in on it, they do that, but for the most part, that is an operational issue handled by the administration and staff. Thank you.
Okay, so the role of the school board in getting involved with curriculum, the way that the school board's going to do that, and they're going to do it in the upcoming year, is how we select our next superintendent. That's why this is a really important school board election, because the 7 members of the school board will be responsible for hiring the next superintendent of our school. So if we're concerned about getting some superintendent who has political agendas, curriculum agendas, we need to make sure we don't get that. I said earlier in response to a different question about hiring the next, I think, administrators of the district, we have to look for the best of the best. That's how we shape the curriculum. We hire a superintendent who has the same views as this community does with respect to curriculum. Thank you.
Kathy?
So hard going third, because I feel the same way as these two gentlemen before me, that the superintendent is the person who handles with the curriculum, along with the teachers, the principals, the shareholders of the school. But being on the board, we would, like Andy said, we would help with that decision when we hired the superintendent of schools. They would make that decision. It doesn't come from the board. Our three, like Billy said, we have 3 jobs on this board, and that's hiring the superintendent, policies, and budget.
Andy, this question is yours. Do you feel that it's important for a board member to have or had children in the school district? 2 of the 3 candidates no longer have children in the district. How will they be able to stay in touch with the needs of our district?
Okay, so the second part of that question, I'm going to let Billy and Kathy answer how they would stay in touch. I do have kids in the school, and I understand the question that the 2 people sitting to my side do not. Do I think that's disqualifying? Not at all. I think we need people on the board who are qualified. That said, I think it's something that I bring to the table. It's one of many factors, just like Billy has things he brings to the table and Kathy has things that she brings to the table. But it is important to me to have a school board who does have kids who will be in school. Why? My kids come home every single day and I say, how did school go? What'd you learn about? Tell me 3 things that happened. We call it 3 things in my house. Tell me 3 things that happened every day. And they tell me about their day. And when they tell me, I get to hear exactly how the policies of the district are impacting my children. And I'm an attorney, so when I meet my kids' friends, I cross-examine them about what goes on in school. Tell me what happens. I ask the kids on my team. But I think having kids in school does give me the ability to do that. And I think it is a little bit harder. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but if you don't have kids in school, you may not quite realize how the policies are impacting the kids. COVID's a great example. Having children who are sitting staring at a 4x6 screen all day, missing their friends, missing their sports, missing their activities, as a parent, you feel it, you see it, and it does give you a unique perspective. So I do think it is a factor that people should consider. It's not the only factor.
Kathy?
Well, I'm one of those people that don't have anybody in the school district, although I did have 4 children through the school district. And I don't have the advantage of them coming home every day with a question or an answer or something that happened in school. But I will make myself aware of everything that does happen within the school district. I will make myself available 100% to this school. One thing good about the advantage of not having any children in the school is there's no special, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no special advantage. I don't have to worry about, I don't have a teacher in the school district. I don't have anybody, a secretary, a janitor, anybody here that works in the school district, which can keep me a little bit open-minded on all my decisions.
Thank you. Billy?
Are you kidding me? With all this free time with my kids not around anymore? It's the best thing in the world. So I think the way you stay involved is, as I've done, I was active in this community before I have kids, and I tend to stay active because philosophically that's just my belief. If you're in a community, stay active. For those that don't know, I'm a volunteer football coach. I help out with the Challenger program. I speak on Human Relations Day prior to COVID. I spearhead the LinkedIn networking site, which I take the graduating students, I put them into the networking site on LinkedIn, then we help them find jobs and career network that way. So I think having had kids in the district gives me that insight, but I don't see how I would be any less insightful or beneficial to the community having had my kids graduate. It's really all about the time you put in. That's why we go to sporting events, that's why you go to concerts, that's why you go to plays, that's why you engage people in the community when you see them, especially the children. You gotta spend more time talking to the kids. Every time you talk to a teenager and their parent is next to them, their parent starts answering the question, I have to say, thanks, but can I talk to your child about that? So get involved. It's just a question of engaging yourself, finding a way to stay involved and with the kids in the community. So I don't see it to be any different than what I've been doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Kathy, this question's yours. How do you feel Lynbrook is doing to meet the needs of students with special needs?
That's a really special question for me because I do have a family member with special needs and who went to the Lynbrook Schools District, and they did unbelievably for a life skills program for her. I believe that a child with needs is more than special, and that's why I push for vocational services to be a little bit better. But What happens with a child once they leave the school district, there is nothing much for them. So I think this school would benefit for maybe opening up a program to help them maybe get jobs or show them how to interact with working with people outside of the district.
Thank you, Billy.
Definitely one of the unique groups we have. There is really a special place you have to have for parents of special needs kids. For most of us, for most children, you know when they get to 18, they're going to go off and begin that process of being by themselves. You know, keeping in mind, take a step back, special needs children completes a full category. There's a large spectrum that fills into that box. But just imagine those parents that have to make plans to know that for the rest of their lives, that child's going to be needing assistance. You know, how much can we do to prepare that child for life afterwards? We actually had a house down the street from South at one point that's not there anymore. And in one of my arguments with our politicians, I said, well, at the very least, why can't we do that? Why can't we find state funding for those kids that need assistance when they come out of high school, and maybe we can transition them to a home like that where they have supervision, give their parents a break, and in those that can work, can work. But we do have special programs for kids in our school to help them transition. But understand it's a wide spectrum. There's those kids we can give those skills to and help them transition out. Other ones we're working on giving them life skills to. And it's a lot of time and money that we spend as a district addressing that issue. It is definitely an issue that gets a lot of attention. Thank you.
Andy?
Okay, so I largely agree with what Billy said. I think the district does spend a lot of time and money addressing the needs of special needs kids. But I would say that there are kids who have more severe special needs who really their needs aren't being met. You have kids at the far end of the autism spectrum. You have twice exceptional children who they just cannot get their needs met by the district. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with New York state law, every child is entitled to an education provided by the district. If the district cannot meet a child's needs, the district pays on district dollar to send those kids to schools that can meet their needs. So what happens? You have kids who have the most severe disabilities, often on a bus an hour each way, going to Great Neck, going to Syosset, going further out on Long Island to go to specialized schools. To me, that's a failure. There are other school districts on Long Island and in Nassau County that actually have self-contained programs for kids who have those more severe disabilities. We don't have that, and that's a need that's not being met. Now, for those of you who are a little more cold-hearted and aren't moved by that, there's a money issue. Lynbrook is currently paying between $3 and $4 million a year. It's 4% of our budget to send children to schools because we can't meet their needs. We really owe it to those kids to form a self-contained program in school to meet their needs internally, and we would save millions of dollars once that program's up and running. Thank you.
Billy, this question's yours. What are your feelings on teaching sex ed to 6-year-olds?
I can give that really easy. I defer to the educational experts who chose the age by which we should be teaching sexual education. The question really probably meant to ask whether or not we should be teaching gender orientation, not sex education. But being that the question was asked on sex education, I'll defer to the educational experts and when they decide we should do it. Thanks.
Andy?
I'll largely agree with Billy, but I'll be a little bit more blunt. I don't think we should be teaching sex ed to 6-year-olds. I think that's something that they're too young to fully understand at that age. It's something that's better reserved a couple years later, just like most of the experts have already opined. I also think that teaching sex ed to kids at that age, the parents may not want the kids learning about that at that age. So that's another area where we need to engage the community and really respect the needs and the wishes of the parents here. I just think 6 years old is way too young for kids to be learning about sex ed, period, full stop.
I agree 100% with the two gentlemen to my right. Teaching 6-year-olds about sex education should not be done. End of story.
Thank you. Andy, as a board member, if needed, where would you look to make budget cuts?
So I would hope that we don't need to make budget cuts. I think the district already has areas that we need to improve. I talked about technology. I talked about the limited after-school clubs, the limited electives in the school. But I think in response to one of the prior questions, I actually identified a very significant budget cut. If we were to have a self-contained program for the more special needs children in the district, it may be an initial startup cost, but over time we would save potentially millions of dollars by bringing those kids in-house. We'd also be meeting their needs internally. Other areas for budget cuts, I don't necessarily think you need to talk in terms of budget cuts. We have really high taxes in this district, okay? If you look at neighboring Oceanside, neighboring Valley Stream, their taxes are way lower than ours. Their kids get new laptops every 2 years. They get Google Chromebooks, MacBooks, iPads. Our kids are using 4-year-old dated tablets. So I wouldn't be talking about budget cuts. I'd be talking about being more efficient with what we currently have. Thank you.
Kathy?
I was looking over the budget, and I don't see where we could cut in a budget, but I do know that we can write for grants, maybe hire a grant writer. I also am a grant writer. Not hire, do not look to hire me, but no. But to help, to work with somebody to help look for grants that would help us to take over some of the budget. I would like to see where the budget doesn't go up every year, where we could probably just keep it at raising the taxes 0%. And I think writing a grant for some of our needs for the district would help as far as better equipment, better technology. You could absolutely write grants for that.
Billy?
Having been involved in that process for 15 years, I would not make any predictions going into the budget process now. I rely heavily upon the superintendent and the principals and the staff, which come to us understanding the importance of being efficient with their money. Definitely special needs is an area where every year that's looked at and addressed, and we just had a presentation, I don't remember what month it was ago, where we had begun a new program, or a continuation of a program where we're bringing more of those special needs children back into the district to not just, it's not really about the money, although it does save us money, but having brought them back into the district to educate them not only saves us money, but it's so much more comfortable for them. So now we have a whole bunch of students that are back in our area, back in our district, taking classes and being educated. But really, you have to wait until budget time. You have to see what issues come up every year, and that's the time you start looking at crunching those numbers. Thanks.
Thank you. Kathy, this is your question. This will be the last question. Are there any areas in which you would like to see our students receive more opportunities?
More opportunities. Like I said, I'm a big advocate for more vocational programs for the kids and open school night for that, because I think a lot of kids that don't want to go to college are seeking help in that area. So I would like, I'm totally drawing a blank here. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Are there any areas in which you would like to see our students receive more opportunities?
I would like to see more programs come in about drug awareness, vaping, alcohol. These children need to have more programs to be aware of what will happen to them in that area. I would like to see more. Well, I can't be any more positive. I have to say, being in Limerick my whole entire life, everybody in this community, whether it be in the school or the villages, all very positive, and they always push kids to better themselves. And I hope that that's what Limerick will continue to do.
Thank you. Billy?
Definitely would like to see us get more earlier on in the process, by 9th or 10th grade, when we have an earlier understanding of those students that are not looking to go to college, to try to get them to the other type of interests that they have. If that's vocational training, even if it's military training, make sure they still graduate, get that diploma, but have those life skills they need, and then early on get them into those other processes. And even for our students that are going to look to go to higher education, we've had some of the best results ever this past year with our kids going to colleges. Some of the best colleges out there we have our students go to, and that was because our guidance department made a concerted effort to look at that different group. Remember, we have those different stakeholders in the community that we have to address, but maybe we can increase our internships, maybe earlier on, not just vocational students, but any student that's looking to get a better understanding of what it's going to be like post-high school, maybe we can give those and increase those internship opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you. Andy?
Okay, so I've touched on some of these areas before, but I think one opportunity for our children to advance and to really see increased programming would be in the elective offerings at the school. We currently only offer one business-related elective. There's a second one that's quasi-business. If you look at the curriculum offerings at Hewlett, at Oceanside, at some of the other neighboring schools, they have 6, 7, 8 business-related electives for kids to choose from. If for our kids that want to go into those areas, we need more elective programming. Kathy touched upon vocational opportunities for the children. We don't have a single class in vocational business management, so it's great to say we're going to send kids to be electricians and plumbers, but the goal would be ultimately for those kids to own their own business, and we need to include classes to train them how to manage that business. We don't currently have that. So those are 2 areas I think we could improve. I also would like to see an increased focus in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade on increased internships and externships. Billy touched upon them. We have very few opportunities. I was talking to a colleague of mine who lives up in Roslyn, different school district, different tax base, I understand, but the kids graduating there have each had 2 to 3 summers of internships. Our kids aren't getting those opportunities, and it's something we should focus on to make them more competitive both in the job market and in the college application process.
Thank you. We've had 15 questions, which all of you have brought to the table for these candidates to answer. I want to thank the candidates for their time before the closing statements. I'd also like to thank them for running for an elected office. It's not something that's easy to do, as I'm certain we're all aware. And I just want to say thank you for helping to make democracy work. And all of you make democracy work when you vote at the school board election. I was telling one of the candidates earlier that most elected officials start their career at the school board level. So when you see people at the county executive, at the state senator, assembly, at Congress, many of them started right here in your community. It's the community elections that start people off and are most important to how democracy works. With that, we'll start with the closing statements, which are 2 minutes in length. And Billy, you get to go first.
Thank you. Again, want to thank the PTA Council and League of Women Voters for hosting this event and for all you coming out and taking the time. As I hope I demonstrated, I'm heavily vested in this community, as I always have been. It's just something I philosophically believe in the way I live my life. And I'm very proud of this district, and I'm very proud of our accomplishments, especially in all the stuff we had to go through in the pandemic and how we were able to pull through that and stay together. So keep in mind that we pass our budget every year with one of the highest percentages in Nassau County. We constantly do that with a tax cap. At the same time, we add new programs. We upgrade our facilities. I think that alone is a great credit to our students, to our teachers, to our administrators. It's always a great team effort. You know, communication came up here a lot, and so I want to make sure that we understand a lot of work goes into doing that. I wasn't calling out Dave Yeager. My point was that what we do as a board is we make sure someone's responsible every month for drafting those responses, and then we as a board get together and make sure that we all agree with it. You can imagine what that's like, having 7 people agreeing what a response is to every inquiry, and those always go out. But I think the future is somewhat uncertain. I don't think we're out of the woods yet on government mandates and Albany telling us what to do. That's been a fight I've had going back for 15 years. It becomes more concerning when there's world events that take place and we lose control to make those decisions, and we can't do what's in the best interest of our community. So that needs to be continued to be pushed back against. And we have changes coming. You know, there's new principals in our school. There could be new administrators. A lot of different things are taking place. So my hope is, if you allow it, I'd like to be part of that process of steering us forward and navigating the future. Thank you.
Billy? Excuse me, Andy?
So first, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today and being a part of the process. I think it was great that people asked so many questions and such tough questions, because you really get to hear what we're all about. I do not envy the voters of this district in this election, because I candidly think you have 3 very qualified candidates up here who largely agree on a lot of the issues. I think we all bring different things to the table. I think one thing that I bring to the table is I do have 2 kids who are still in school, so the decisions I make directly impact them every single day. and I get direct feedback from them every single day. It doesn't mean it's determinative, but I do think that's a factor. The other thing is that I've demonstrated to everybody here and in the community that when our kids really needed an advocate, I was there for them. Okay, I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that candidly because when our kids were suffering the most, I did step up for them, and I did advocate for their best interest. When I was doing that, I heard the word, and everyone on stage used this word today, stakeholders. We have to look out for the various stakeholders. When I wanted the schools reopened because our kids were suffering and our kids were missing their friends and their teachers, I said, we got to do what's right for the kids. And I heard, well, we have to do what's right for all the different stakeholders in the community. So you've seen my signs. My slogan is putting children first, and I've demonstrated that that's what I will always do. I will always put children first in anything impacting the schools. So I want to thank everybody. I hope you'll all vote for me. Thank you very much.
Kathy.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. You did a great job here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to especially thank all of you guys sitting out there, and women, because thank you for coming out on this horrible rainy night. And, well, I don't know if it's still raining, but anyway, to answer all the questions, I hope we did the best that we could. Good luck to Billy and Andy both for running for the school board. 2 of us here will be on your board, 1 will not. Either way, we'll come back the next year to try again because, like Andy said, our children always come first. Billy has done an exceptional job for the last 15 years sitting on the board, and I'm hoping to work with either one of these gentlemen, and I think we'll all do a great job. Please remember to get out and vote on the 17th, and remember to say yes to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give the candidates and also Joanna Santoli, excuse me, for of the PTA for sponsoring this debate. Thank you very much.